It's time to get back to the Gongshow 25.
All right.
We're getting down to the wire here.
Yep.
We're going to go through numbers 10 through 6 today. And again, the Gongshow 25 is our rankings of who we believe are the current most relevant players in the hockey hobby. As I mentioned, so far we've counted down numbers 25 through 11. We have the players on your screen there. I guess for those listening, it's at 25 was Swayman, then Pedersen, Sorokin, Sider, Patrick Kane at 20, Slavkovsky, Stutzla, Beniers at 18, 17, Marner, Pasta, Tage Thompson coming at 14, Matthew Tkachuk, Nathan McKinnon, Trevor Zegras at number 12, and the number 11 was Leon Draisaitl. So I'm going to say again, well, first of all, if you want to hear any of our overview of those guys, I think for the last 3 episodes, we did 5 each. You can go back and listen or watch those. But again, a reminder that our Gongshow 25 list is our ranking of the current top 25 players in the hobby. Doing stuff like this is very subjective, and your order and your methodology, I'm sure, would be way different than what we do. And that's really what we see as part of the fun in doing this, is really in the debate. So where many times, like in life, there's no right or wrong answer, it's just opinions. And this is one of the cases. Now, you might be asking, why do we keep repeating this? Because we have people rage quit our show and every time we do this, because they're offended by our opinion. And we just want to be as clear as possible that, of course, anytime you do something like this, there's going to be disagreement. And this is just our view, and it doesn't make it right or wrong. And we actually like the debate. We want to hear where you disagree, and because maybe that we'll learn from that as well. So the factors we use to determine the rankings are things like the player's position, what their point production has been last year and throughout their career, their pedigree, so how they performed pre-NHL, if they're still kind of in that prospect mode, the consistency in which they produce, any awards and accomplishments they've won, what their personality, flair, or hype in the hobby is, how splashy their play is, and then, of course, looking at kind of their sales metrics and volume. So the volume of current sales, price trends, so on and so forth. Okay. I think we're ready to go on with our next 5.
All right.
So coming in at number 10 in the Gongshow 25 is our guy, Jason Robertson. Still very young, Troy, 24-year-old Dallas Stars forward, hailing from Arcadia, California. Got a Cali guy.
The hockey hotbed that is Arcadia, California.
He was the 39th overall pick in the 2017 NHL draft. Not bad to get a guy in the second round like Jason Robertson. No, I know they just extended their GM. Was he the guy that drafted him? Do you know?
I do not know.
If he was, I'm sure that's why he got the extension, because you pick a guy like this in the second round, you're doing good. You can hang your hat on that for a long time. He's a big kid, Troy. 6'3", 200 or so pounds. We talk about goal scoring pedigree a lot as really a solid indicator of success in the NHL and in projecting in the hobby. And when you look at Robertson's 5-year career in the OHL, prior to signing his entry-level contract with the NHL, he scored 149 goals in 198 games played. That's 0.7 goals per game over 5 years. Very, very good. Once he did sign his NHL deal, he did play a season in the AHL for the Texas Stars, putting up 25 goals, 22 assists for 47 points in 60 games played. Not spectacular, but pretty good nonetheless. And now he's played 3 full seasons in the NHL where he's amassed 104 goals, 130 assists for 234 points and 210 games played. So at the NHL level, he's 0.9 goals per game and 1.11 points per game. The best thing, though, is in each of his 3 seasons, he's gotten better.
Yes.
He went from 17 goals to 41 to 46 and 45 points to 79 to 109. In fact, this past season, he set the single season point record for the Stars while only being 23 years old. J-Rob is a 2020 young gun. His PSA 10 popped 1,135, 39% gem rate, last sold for $200 US, up 12% in the past month. So here's why we ranked him at number 10. The numbers are incredible for such a young player, and it's scary to think that he should only continue to get better. He, of course, is a goal scorer, and that drives hobby value, and it's a must to be in the top, the elite part of the hobby. I think, too, the Stars are a good team. Very young, strong core that should put J-Rob in the position at postseason success for a lot of years to come. You kind of compare, Troy, his team situation to our guy like Kaprizov, who are rookies the same year. And if you think, wow, who could have postseason success? It looks a little bleak for our guy Kirill, and J. Rob's in just a great situation. He's also had his hobby breakthrough moment this past December. And I think why that's important, because it's sort of an acknowledgement for the hobby. It's like, okay, we get you. We see you. You're here. Because he had been kind of under the radar since then. And I think that was sort of a big moment. I'll give you kind of an example of this. So his 2022 Young Gun PSA 10, you go back to the start of last season, or middle part of October, it was about 155 US. And you might be thinking, well, it's like 200 now. Big deal, right? Up 25%. What story does that tell? But when you throw in the pop count changes to that too, so when that was selling for 155, the pop count was about 300. And again, now it's over 1,100.
Yep. Wow.
So it's quadrupled in pop count, and also gone up about 25%, which I think is pretty impressive.
Yep.
So here's why we didn't rank him higher. This is the territory on the list where hardware and consistent years-long success is going to matter. And of course, he hasn't made it to the Cup Finals or won any of the types of awards that pad your resume to this point, but he's still very young. He could in the future, and that could be catapult him up the list. He just hasn't gotten there yet. I think it's funny too, Troy, when you have the benefit of hindsight and you look back. I remember when the Stars played the Golden Knights and they lost, that everybody was kind of thinking at that point, what's wrong with the Stars? Like they were almost like blowing the series. And now, of course, we know that, well, geez, the Golden Knights were, kind of the team of destiny.
Yeah.
At that point, of course, going to win the Stanley Cup. And so that series loss to me, I think, is a little more forgivable with the benefit of hindsight. And I guess the last thing I'll say, and I'm sure we'll hear from other J-Rob fans, but all I can give is our perspective from afar. And I haven't really noticed much of a personality.
Yeah.
Or a big star factor. He seems a little more like a quiet, kind of unassuming, which is not a bad trait as a human being. But when it comes to the creating highlights and headlines and getting talked about, whether you have that kind of Zegras flash or Matthew Tkachuk kind of personality, I think it positions you a little bit better to be a bigger star in the hobby. Any thoughts on J-Rob?
No, J-Rob's fantastic. Again, came on everyone's radar this year in December. I just love that he's got like the exact trajectory we want to see, where he's over 100 points. Hopefully he can keep that up, maybe even increase it a little more. I'm a big J-Rob fan. And while you're kind of talking, I looked it up. The GM of Dallas, that he's still there. He was the GM of Dallas in 2013. He's still there, that drafted J-Rob. Yeah, and I think Dallas, I mean, you got to be excited. You got some good players. I like your goalie. And you talk about the playoffs too. You come to find out Ottinger was injured. There was just bodies banged up, which happens. But yeah, I like J-Rob. I think he's a great player.
Just some other notable hockey card stats for Robertson before we move on. According to TerraPeak, there's been 168 eBay sales over $1,000 US in the past 2 years. That's pretty impressive. 538 sales, more than $500. Highest publicly selling J-Rob card to date is a 2020 Young Guns Exclusives, which is out of 100 course raw. That sold for $5,877 US this past December, when he was kind of riding that rocket ship and having that breakthrough moment. So J-Rob, number 10. Okay, moving on to our next guy. Number 9, Kirill Kaprizov. Number 9 on our list, but number 1 in our hearts with the bullet, Troy.
Love it.
I've said it many times. I would adopt this kid if I could, just to drive him to practice every day, make him a sandwich, and say, have a good day at practice, Kirill. We just love him so much, and he's the first superstar we've ever had. We've been desperate for a player like him for many years, so we're trying to soak it all in here. He is a 26-year-old Minnesota Wild forward, originally from, oh boy, here we go, Troy. Novokuznetsk.
Yeah, Russia? I think that's right. That sounds right.
Sweet.
Good job, comrade.
was the 135th overall pick in the 2015 NHL entry draft. So us Minnesota Wild fans had to be incredibly patient, though. We had
Yep.
to wait 5 years for this guy to come here, and as he remained in the KHL after being drafted, and it's not like we knew it'd be 5 years either. Like if you go
Nope.
back and remember what we went through, it was like, is it going to come this year? No. Could he come next year? I don't know. It was sort of a big soap opera for a
Yeah.
long time. So I'm just kind of throwing that out there for any of our Flyers fans, that just to get ready, to buckle up, to have patience, to not ride the roller coaster with your guy Mitchkov, as he might be in that similar position as far as going back to the KHL and when and if he comes to play in the NHL. And I guess for your sake, I hope it's sooner than it was with
Mhm.
Kaprizov. So he played Troy a total of 7 seasons in the KHL.
That's crazy.
Just 15 years old when he started in the league. He put up 124 goals, 123 assists, 247 points in 346 games played. He didn't produce a lot when he was really young, was a better producer towards the end of his KHL career. So he came to the NHL in 2020. He had 27 goals, 24 assists, 51 points in 55 games played, delivered immediate impact for the Wild. I mean, how many games did you watch him play where you're like, this is the best guy that we've ever had on
Yep.
our team? It was very soon. His performance in 2020, 2021 was good enough to win the Calder Trophy. And now, 3 years into his NHL career, Kaprizov has tallied 114 goals, 120 assists, 234 points, and 203 games played. So it's 0.56 goals per game and 1.15 points per game. Now, Kaprizov is Troy. You know about his Young Guns, Troy? It's 2020. You ever seen it?
I do. I know lots about that card. Boy, every time that pop gets on there, it jumps like by 100. I swear to God.
Oh, yeah. It's up to like 4,236, has like a 65% gem rate. Last over 180 US on July 25th. Flat
Oof.
in the past month. So here's why we rank Kaprizov at number 9. While sweet and assuming, his play is utterly dynamic. He's electric to watch. And yeah, I think that that's important when, for guys that get a lot of kind of excitement and hype in the hobby. And so much so, he's a guy that scares you when he's got the puck on his stick in the offensive zone when he's playing your team. So if you're a LA Kings fan and the Wild are in your zone and Kaprizov is skating around on those like mohawk edge things that he does, it's got to be terrifying. It just because everybody knows that something good will happen for the Wild and potentially bad for the other team. He's a goal scorer, a big moment producer, and I think too, like why he's so high in the hobby. Part of it, Troy. I was kind of reflecting on this when I was driving home. That, as we all know, timing in life is really important, and he just kind of lined up coming to the NHL, performing really well during that pandemic season
Hmm.
when the sports cards were going crazy, and he was sort of the rookie that people latched onto
Yep.
from that 2020 class. And maybe for some reasons that you can justify and from some other reasons what nobody knows, but it's just sort of what happened. And he's kind of been riding the wave since that. Is he a better player than Jason Robertson? I don't know. I don't think so. I think you could have an equal argument one way or the other, but he definitely has had a lot more hype,
Yep.
right or wrong, or good or bad or indifferent. Okay, so here's why we did not rank our guy higher. While Minnesota is definitely the state of hockey, we're proud of that. It's part of our culture, and our state is hands down, no questions, the closest in the U.S. it gets to hockey culture like that Canada sees. That being said, though, it's not actually a really big NHL market
Nope.
that gets a lot of attention nationally here in the U.S. or even internationally. We
Yep.
sell out every game. People care about in the state, but I'm not sure anyone else around the country really pays much attention to the Wild, which I think could limit his hobby ceiling a bit. Then you have to look at last season where Kaprizov battled injuries. He only played 67 games, which hurt his overall production. His goal totals weren't as good as the previous season in his point totals, but he did score 0.6 goals per game and 1.2 points per game. So he actually had higher than his career average last year, but that's what happens when you get injured. And we saw it with Austin Matthews. We saw it with Cale Makar a little bit last year, too. It's just going to lower those point totals. And then last thing, we kind of alluded to this already, but our team here isn't super, and that's me putting it as nicely as I can. We're basically in salary cap HE double hockey sticks with the Parisi and Suter buyouts. I'm not sure we're going to be in position anytime soon. We're like a first round and out playoff team.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't see us not making the playoffs, but I can't see us winning a round either. And so that could be a ceiling on a sort of hobby value too. So what do you have to say about your boy Kaprizov?
No, Kaprizov's fantastic. He's one player that I've watched probably a majority of his games. He's a fantastic player. He's a fantastic passer. Another thing where you could say we didn't rank him higher is his teammates kind of stink. His line mates aren't the greatest. If you could give him just
It's no help.
just someone. I know Zuccarello, and who else has he played with?
Well, Sam Steele was the center.
Steele's there. They have their moments, but it's nothing consistent to help him. And
he loses 25 assists.
Yeah,
easy
for sure.
per year, and putting the puck right on somebody's stick that wasn't expecting it and just muffs.
Yeah, and they look it down. I mean, you can see the surprise on their face. I mean, I think Draisaitl's the best passer in the league. Boy, Kaprizov's close. He makes some amazing passes, but he's a great player. Obviously he's 26, so you got to watch the age. But excited to see how his career continues to progress.
Okay, some notable hockey card stats to close out Kaprizov here. According to Card Ladder sales history, there's been 419 Kaprizov cards that have sold for more than $1,000 US, 1,332 that have sold for more than 500. So again, making that Kaprizov J-Rob comparison, like we said, I don't know, maybe Robertson's even a better player. Who knows? I'm loyal to our guy. But when you look at the hobby stats, it's not even close. And the highest selling Kaprizov card to date is a 2020 Skybox Metal Universe 97 Retro Gold PMG 101 BGS 7.5 that sold for $28,800 US in April 2022. That brings us to number 8, Cale Makar. I'm sure it's not surprising to you or anyone else, Troy, that Makar is the highest ranked defenseman on our inaugural Gongshow 25 list. Well, if it was surprising to you, that would be weird because you helped write the list. The 24-year-old blue liner for Troy, your Colorado Avalanche, was the 4th overall pick in the 2017 NHL entry draft. He's coming in at 5'11", 187 pounds, hailing from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, which must make him the second most famous person from Calgary then, Troy, because, of course, Jeremy Lee is Calgary's most famous citizen. Close second to Cale Makar there.
Nice.
Prior to lacing him up for the Avs, Makar played for a couple of seasons at UMass. But he never heard of the Gophers, Cale?
Curious the Gophers, if the Gophers went after him.
Greatest legacy in all of college hockey? Those Gophers? Yeah. U of M?
Yeah. The Gophers, though, they get a little stingy with keeping it Minnesota players, even though they've expanded. It used to be during the Doug Woog era. If you weren't from Minnesota, you ain't playing it for the Gophers. And then Lucia
wasn't Thomas Vanek like one of the first non?
Yeah, Vanek was one of the first ones. Grant Ptolemy, I think he was North Dakota. Yeah. But yeah, Lucia came in and started opening it up because you had to. Eventually, when you got UND recruiting 23-year-old freshmen from North Dakota, you better start expanding your territory where you're picking up players from.
Well, Makar went to UMass. He did score 21 goals, added 49 assists for 70 points in 75 games played over his freshman and sophomore years. He also won Troy Lord Hobie's Award, or as normal people call it, the Hobie Baker Award in 2019. Wouldn't it be better if it was Lord Hobie's Award? Had to say that for fun. Makar's now played in the NHL for 4 seasons, amassing 65 goals, 181 assists for 246 points in 238 games played. That's 0.27 goals per game, 1.03 points per game. He also won the Calder Trophy as the NHL's best rookie the season prior to Kaprizov, 2019-2020, and had a pretty good year the following season, 2021-22. He barely beat your guy Kucherov in the Norris Trophy, won the Conn Smythe and Lawrence Stanley's Cup.
Kucherov getting votes even though he doesn't play D. I love it. No, I'm just kidding. So
Makar's good. Very, very good. He's a 2019 Young Gun PSA 10 pop 2,210. 64% jam rate, last sold for $423 US on July 26th. It is down 24% in the past month. Why we ranked him at number 8. Well, he's managed to accomplish almost the impossible, Troy. He's emerged as a true hobby superstar from the defensive position. Partly, I guess, because he's just so gifted offensively.
Yeah.
I guess, a long time, he's one of the more offensively gifted defensemen we've seen in the league. We talked about it already when we were going over Bobby Orr at our greatest player to wear number 4. People don't throw out those comparisons lightly, but during his cup run in 2021-22, it was almost constant and maybe even overdone at times. And he's just flat out got the play, hype, and it factor. So why did we not rank him higher than number 8? Well, he's still a defenseman that probably won't ever score 60 goals in a season,
Yeah.
which is kind of the territory we're getting to here in our Gongshow 25 list. So to get much higher on the list, he'll need to do all-time record-breaking type stuff. I still think his offensive game has another notch or two that it could go up. Again, we hear the org comparisons, but when you actually do compare them and you look at like specifically goals per game and points per game, it's honestly not much of a comparison to this point. Or average 0.41 goals per game and 1.39 points per game over his career, where we just covered a minute ago, Makar's at 0.27 goals per game and 1.03 points per game. He's still going to get better. He's still young, but he's not quite. He's or light at this point.
Yeah.
Also, too, I think you got to throw in there a little bit like Kaprizov. Makar was banged up a bit last season, and it affected his production. Plus, I think, too, Troy, it would almost have been impossible to match or exceed what he achieved in 2021-22. Like, a little step backwards in hype was almost inevitable.
Yeah.
Everything went right in that Stanley Cup winning season. So any thoughts you have on or notes on Makar that you want to throw in there?
Oh, he's getting momentum from that one tremendous season, and he's kept up. He still looks like the player that he was 2 years ago. Obviously, he was injured. This year is going to be huge for him. What really happens with him and what we see? Because again, if he regresses or if he falls into the 12 goals, 60, 70 assists guy, then we get back into the assist machine debate. But he's got that offensive skill, and we've seen it. Hopefully, he's healthy the whole year, and he can come back and have a tremendous season.
And it's not just the skill; he's very dynamic and electric when he has the puck. So it makes him very exciting to watch. Some Makar notable hobby stats, according to Card Ladder sales history, Troy, been 493 Cale Makar public card sales of more than $1,000. 1,659 cards have sold more than $500. And the highest selling Makar card to date is a 2019-20 Exquisite Collection NHL Shield Patch Auto 101 BGS 7.59 auto grade, sold for $22,800 in April of 2022. 2 more left in the Gongshow 25. Number 7, Cole Caufield. 22-year-old Canadians forward, born in Wisconsin. Another U.S. kid. Crazy. 15th overall pick in the 2019 NHL entry draft. A little on the smallish side, coming in at 5'7", 175 pounds. Prior to starting his career with the Canadians, Caufield played for a couple seasons for the University of Wisconsin. Holding judgment there. Where he scored 49 goals, added 39 assists for 84 points in 67 games played. In his 2 seasons with the Canadians, he scored 49 goals, 30 assists, 79 points, 113 total games played. So that's 0.43 goals per game, 0.70 points per game. Of course, unfortunately, he was hurt this past, I think, January. Ended up only playing 46 games in the 2022-23 season. He did, though, score 46 goals and added 10 more assists for 36 points. It was a huge disappointment for Canadians fans and really for the hobby, too, as he was the big and has been the big 2021 rookie. But with you look at 26 goals in 46 games, that is a 46 goal pace over an 82 game season. So that's not bad for a guy in his second season. Would he have got there? Who knows? He might have hit a wall had he stayed healthy, but the pace was really, really good up until the point he got hurt. Caufield is a 2021 Young Guns. His PSA 10 popped 2,192 with a 35% gem rate. Last sold for $252 on July 27th. It's down about 6% in the past month. So I do want to make a note here too, and just again to illustrate how the gem rate affects the pop count. When you look at with that 35% gem rate, I didn't write the number down. and you could just do the math. At 2,192 PSA 10s, that means it's something like 6,500
Yeah.
cards have been submitted. So if he had the same gem rate as Kaprizov, I think his pop count would be higher or would be very, very close.
Yeah.
Right. And so this is a case where we don't love when a flagship series come out and has really low gem rates. But now, if you're a Caufield guy and you're a Young Guns collector and you want to build value into it, that 35% gem rate is almost protecting, I think, the value to a certain extent. So, why did we rank Cole Caufield at number 7? Well, throughout the past year, there has been, and there will continue to still be, a number of 2021 sets released. And to this point, he's by far the biggest rookie chase in what I'll call the 2021-22 hobby class. And I think, Troy, you can even argue that Caufield is a bigger chase than any of the rookies in the current 2022-23 hobby class to this point as well. And so these are the sets that are coming out now, and he's the guy that a lot of people are chasing. So there's a lot of attention and big collector focus on his cards. Now, playing for the Montreal Canadiens doesn't help or doesn't hurt your hobby hype either, and he's in a huge hobby market as well. Lots of collectors. He's a goal scorer, which we know the hobby loves, and he's shown promise that maybe he can be a 40-plus goal guy. So I guess, too, I want to say here that this is a guy you may think, how is he number 7? How is he ahead of Cale Makar? He just has more hype. And he just has more. He has not produced or accomplished what Cale Makar has accomplished. There's no arguing that. But when you look at whose cards are selling right now, today, more of and for more, it's Cole Caufield. And a lot of it, again, does have to do with the fact that he's the rookie, the key rookie in the sets that are coming out. 2021 Credentials comes out on next Wednesday or this Wednesday. Who's going to be the big chase? Cole Caufield. So, that's where, again, timing plays a factor. So why we didn't rank him higher? Well, with Caufield, again, it's all about promise and potential. And to get much higher on this list, you're going to have to deliver. Right? It's about as high as you can get based on, maybe one more guy. We'll get into later. Not only does Caufield need to put up the numbers to move up higher in the list, but he'll need to win some probably hardware too. Trophies, awards, team success, that sort of thing. I think, too, you can also, given the fact he was hurt and it's happened with other small guys, from a limiting perspective or a cautionary perspective, you may have concerns about his ability to stay healthy over the long haul. And guys like Jack Hughes had to prove that they could come back and stay healthy. And now that's kind of where Caufield and his buddy Slavkovsky are kind of in that mode now. Too. So any thoughts on Caufield at number 7?
I'm still worried about injuries and his small stature. Now, Slavkovsky also got injured. He's a huge dude, so who knows? But you see articles going each way that small guys are getting injured. Oh, that's overblown and stuff like that. But I'm still a little worried, a little cognizant on Caufield on just that standpoint. He's obviously shown talent. Like to get a whole 2-game season out of him. And I'm going to make one. It's not a correction, but just so we don't get jumped on by people. When we say in his 2 seasons, we meant 2 full seasons with the Canadiens. We know he played in a year before, like 10 games, but we didn't include those stats in that point per game stuff. So we know it. Just you don't need to tell us. We got it. But yeah, I mean, I like Caufield. He's obviously a big chase, and you're so right on just he's the guy, and it helps him that all of the products coming out now 21-22 because it's pumping him up because he's the one guy everyone's chasing. Now, next year, when that products move through, now it's on performance, like you said.
When we're on to Connor Bedard sets next year, and if he has 14 goals in April, he won't be number 7 on this list. This is where he is today. Okay, last guy we're going to feature at number 6, Jack Hughes. Last spot before the top 5. Another 20-year-old. This time a native of Orlando, Florida. We've had a California kid, an Orlando kid, a Wisconsin is stuff changing here in the U.S. when it comes to hockey?
The American development model maybe starting to show some fruits of its labor, I guess.
It's kind of nutty. Hughes, Troy, was the first overall pick in the 2019 NHL entry draft. Another smallish guy, not quite Cole Caufield small, but he's 5'11", 175 pounds. prior to the 2019 draft, Hughes played for the U.S. national U18 team. We're in 50 games played. Check this out. He had 34 goals, 78 assists for 112 points. So that's more than 2 points per game. That is good.
Yeah, and they don't play a easy schedule. They play some college teams. I wonder how they did against Shattuck. I should look that up.
Oh, we should. To this point, he's played 4 seasons in the NHL, and he was not a superstar right out of the gate. He battled some injuries that caused him to miss 54 games over his first 3 seasons. Plus, I think it's safe to say he underwhelmed a little bit in his first, especially his first 2 years in the league while he was acclimating to the NHL. And I think you made the point a number of times on our show that not everybody's trajectory and journey, I guess, that overused word, into the
Yeah.
NHL is the same. And sometimes guys develop at different paces. And it took him maybe a year or 2 longer than guys that maybe are a little more shot out of a cannon and produce right away. One thing you can say though, Troy, is his point production did improve in each of his first 4 seasons. So a lot like J. Rob, kind of similar in that. Culminating in a really strong last season, 2022-23, he scored 43 goals, added 56 assists, barely missing that 100-point threshold with 99 points in 78 games played. Of course, a fantastic season for a 21-year-old. Hughes is a 2019 Young Guns. His PSA 10 topped 3,751. Does that surprise you a little bit?
Oh yeah, that every time we talk about him, that we read off that huge pop number, it's just like wow,
75%.
75. Just don't forget about it. Is that why you put the canvas card up? Just not.
Don't buy just buy anything other than his Young Guns. Last sold for $251 US on July 27th, down about 2% in the past month. So why we ranked him at number 6? Over the past 6 months, his hobby momentum, I think, has really accelerated.
Yep.
And he's kind of at the point where maybe he's been anointed a star. I think so. I kind of feel like he has. He's got the pedigree, personality. Right? We don't get to say that a lot about these guys, and flair to his game that should make him very popular, even outside of New Jersey. He's another one of these kids, like we talked about with the Zegras, whose style of play is just ripe for the Instagram highlight.
Yep.
Hughes is very young, should get better if he can stay healthy. I think, too, the novelty of being a Hughes brother doesn't hurt either. As you know, it's not just that there's 3 brothers in the NHL, but all of them are really good.
Yeah.
And so I think that provides another reason for people outside the market and internationally to pay attention to him. And the Devils are another team with a very young, exciting core. They made it to the playoffs this year, maybe winning a round, surprising people. And Hughes definitely led them during that little, I guess, mini run, but it was a good step in the right direction for them. Why we didn't rank Jack Hughes higher? Well, he's had 1 elite season to date, and I think needs to demonstrate. The guys he's running up against right now that are higher than him have produced at very high levels for a long, long time. So, again, some of what the reason why is that number 7 or number 6 is still largely based on potential. Any new notes or other comments that you have on Jack Hughes?
No, he's the one guy on this list I've probably seen play the least out of any of them. I just don't watch a lot of New Jersey games, but I do love his personality when I've seen it, like the interviews and the little quick hits that they do on the NHL Network and stuff. He seems like a very personal guy that I want to see success. I wish he could have got to 100 points. I hate when people get to 99, so I want to get to the 100. But I think he's a great player. Now, if I can figure out who all his brothers are, I'll be okay, and not throw in our favorite, Jack Quinn,
quasi brother Jack Quinn,
quasi Hughes brother Jack Quinn.
There you go. Okay, to finish out Jack Hughes with some notable hobby stats to date: 174 Hughes cards have sold for $1,000 or more US dollars per card letter sales history. 466 have sold for more than 500. But again, that's really accelerating pretty rapidly.
Yeah.
Top all-time public Hughes sales, 8,500 US for 2019. The Cup RP at a 99, BGS 9 that sold this past April. So that gets us now, one back into, we've done through the top 20 or the first 20 in the Gongshow 25. So the remaining 5 will go through on Thursday's show. Pretty excited about that, and get everyone's feedback on kind of where you like our list, where you agree, disagree, all that sort of good stuff. Again, feel free to message us.